And here we are live once again in the Storycraft Cafe. I am your story barista. I feel like that joke's getting a little old, but it still kind of makes me chuckle a little bit.
Never.
With joining me, as always, Amy Hale, Ian Garner, Lauren Moore, and Josh Hayes.
Hello.
The team is all back together again after a couple of weeks of people being pulled here and there, as life is wont to do. And but we're all here tonight, and we are in the thick of it. You know, I wanted us all to show up and us just all have a happy report. And I feel like it's not going to be one of those nights necessarily. It's going to be one of those nights where we lean on each other and try to solve some problems. I know I have some things that I'm working to solve, and I know everybody else is going through some things as well. Amy, um, you were not with us last week. You had some things that you had to take care of. How's it going? Where are you? And is there anything off the top of your head that we can help you with?
It is like feels like a death crawl right now. It's just I don't know. I don't like my. I think my struggle right now is I'm like I said. I told her I'm working two jobs. I'm trying to keep up with life stuff. I'm having some health issues, and it's all just kind of crashing right now.
Yeah.
So that's not real conducive to creativity, unfortunately. Um, and I sat down and I tried to write. I don't like my plots. I just, the more I look at it, the less I like it. It's just like nothing is going right now. So, if I knew how to ask for help or what I needed help with, I would definitely be shouting out to you guys. But at this point, I don't even know. It's just really bad right now.
All right, we're gonna come back around in a minute. Ian, how's it going?
All right, let's see. My word count.
Where are we?
Hello.
I'm here. Are
Okay.
you here?
Yeah, I'm at 7,606 words written total.
Nice.
And let me just tell you, they're not great words at all, but
They
are
don't have to be at this
that I have
point.
written. Yes. I have found that as I have plotted out most of this, there is so much room for intricate little character details that I could just come up with. And I'm actually at a point now where I'm kind of afraid that I'm rushing things. And I feel like I'm definitely going to have to go back and flesh things out, which I kind of expected, but I'm surprised at how many things I did not account for came up for me to go back and redo, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, our friend Steve Bowyer talks about the onion method of writing. That he talks about writing a scene and then going back and writing into the scene and adding texture and detail and I I really like that idea of leaving yourself room because whether you do it now or on your second draft, there's kind of adding that flavor and detail is nice to do. That's been fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, is your plan holding up, or is the story progressing like you thought that it would?
Oh, yeah. I'm actually encountered a couple of minor plot points that I want to add in as a result. I actually realized, like, my goal last week, I think, was to get Patrick into Ireland.
Yeah.
I've achieved that goal, but I found some interesting character choices I want to pursue. Like, maybe I want to start Patrick off as a rogue type before he gets kidnapped. And there was like one piece of dialogue that I wrote, but his friend said to him, I was like, this leads into like a whole thief chapter, like whole character arc that I could do before we even get on. So, all kinds of fun stuff that I am finding out through these characters that are already coming to life.
Nice, nice. But the trajectory of your story is still holding firm.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We're right on track from what I had planned out.
Excellent, excellent. Good to hear. That might be um, the best success story of the night. Uh, Lauren, how's it going, buddy?
Going good. I'm I'm hanging in there. I'll put it that way. We've had some family issues come up over here too, but that's just an excuse really, because I am putting in time every day to kind
Yeah.
of sit down, look at my plot, work on it, and what I'm able to do is I'm able to kind of like nibble away at it. I'm adding to it. I'm looking at my characters. I'm looking at the conflict. When I get stuck at one point, I go somewhere else in my notes and kind of look for answers and try to make connections and build on it. And it's making some forward progress. I'm making progress forward using that onion method. It is helping. But my word count is I don't even know what it is. I'm sure it's terribly low, terribly. But forward progress.
Do you see potential for the steam to pick up? And like, are you at a place where you feel like you've been building and now, like, how close are you to kind of feeling like you're coming off that first roller coaster hill, that you've got the train that pulls you up and then it lets you loose? Are you at
It's
that point yet?
it's still chugging forward. Yeah, no, because I have two major plot plot problems pretty early on. Like
Yeah.
one's maybe 10% in of the way, and then one's like maybe 15% in. And I gotta figure them out. Like I have to understand how the characters are gonna get over this problem, or else, the story can't move forward. So I have to sort that out. But there's a whole lot of smaller problems before I even get there, and those I am figuring out and making progress on.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Josh, last
Sure.
week you took some vacation. Glad to have you back. And we were just discussing before we went live this problem of signing off and feeling like you should be doing more. And first off, what's that feeling like when you're under a production schedule to disengage and try to let your brain rest for a little bit? That's difficult.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think about that until like day 3. And then day 3 hit and I'm like, man, I'm going to be so far behind. I chose the worst time to do this, knowing this thing was going on. It was for like, I just didn't pick it the days out of random. There was some things I really wanted to do. It's going to sound kind of juvenile, but there was a game that was coming out that I really wanted to play, and it was releasing new servers. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take some time off and do this. So I haven't taken a vacation in forever. Granted, horrible timing, but it allowed me. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, like I was telling you in the pre-show, and it allowed me to get through like 3 or 4 audiobooks that I really enjoyed and are in the same vein as the story that I'm trying to write. And so I was absorbing the pacing and a lot of the descriptive cues that this guy uses in his book. It's Greg Horowitz or Hurwitz, Orphan X, and it's his books are basically a modern day basically an assassin, like a super secret CIA whatever, right?
Nice.
And of course I'm writing for our future, but the premise is the same. Like it's still paramilitary, it's still secret agent spy type stuff, and so the writing applies. And so I've been taking a lot of mental notes while I've been listening to those books. I've got a lot of fodder set back that I can jump into. I think total word count right now is around 6,000. I've done about like 4,600 the last 2 days. And I've got a feel for getting back into the words. Yes, Monday was my first day back, and I had to do some Athon work on Monday, but Tuesday was my first official writing day back, and I got, I think, like 2,800 words that day. And it was a struggle to get started. Every time you take a vacation, you're like, now I need a vacation for my vacation, or I just don't want to go back to work. Like,
Right.
can I just be on vacation the rest of my life, please? So slogging away at that, and I'm having some good progress mentally with the story. And part of listening to these books is I've gone back, and I'm still, the first book is not finished. I'm still editing the first book, and so some of the time I've spent going back and tweaking the first book and piecing chapters together, and I've decided that I'm naming the chapters, which I've never done before, and that is super fun, especially after the book is written and the stuff that I know is in the chapter, and I can go back and kind of look at it like with a slower, more having an overview of everything without having to think of a chapter name and then write the chapter. But one thing I did want to say before we jump into the conversation is I'm super glad, not glad, don't take this the wrong way. I am super glad that everybody is having a hard time. And what I mean by that is, like, when you're writing and you're sitting by yourself and you're banging your face against the keyboard going, nothing is working. I'm all by myself and I'm struggling and I can't do this. And everybody else is just out there having a grand old time, and they wrote 1,000 words or whatever it is. And I suck because I wrote 2. It's humbling and encouraging that it's not just a singular thing. Like, it's not just me having trouble, but everybody experiences it, and to power through and to just hands on keyboard and do what you need to do. And I appreciate everyone and their struggles and the support that everybody gives everybody else. I think that's awesome.
And
yes, we're all on the struggle bus. That's right.
Keto nailed it.
Yes.
That's why this afternoon in our little chat that we have, when everybody started saying, that it's not going so great, I was like, yes, that's what we need to talk. And these are times where we really need to get together and talk.
Yes.
When things are difficult. I am at 28,036 words.
Nicely
right
done.
Now. But this is the problem. I went through my planning month, and I worked on my plan, and I had words bottled up in my head that I knew that when this thing started, the floodgates were going to open, and I was just going to burn through a whole bunch of words. I knew that. And the first week was a tremendous week, and it really went good until, my book's going to be about 85,000, 90,000 words ish, right in there. Because I did market research on the genre that I'm writing in, and, that is the sweet spot for my market. So I'm roughly a third of the way there, which is, just really digging into the murky middle. And I realized that the plan that I laid out has some problems. And some of those problems are that character motivation, which we talked a couple of weeks ago. I didn't believe why this kind of instigating factor in my book. I didn't believe the motivation. I didn't believe the characters. And so then I started realizing that I need to go back and develop more of the backstory. And there are flashback scenes that happen that go back to 1968 and 1971 that kind of form the tension that lives in this little town, that, the buried secrets, if you will. And I'm having to develop more of that. So going forward, I feel like I'm going to be hacking through the weeds and the bushes, with a machete, instead of just, coming off that, I'm just mixing all the metaphors tonight.
We know the feeling.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I am. I came out hard and strong, and now I'm up to my knees in mud. So this next week's going to be interesting.
I usually ramp up like a very slow. I actually love writing the middle of the book. Like,
Yeah,
but the murky middle is not a thing for me in the way I write, and I absolutely love writing that. It's when I get to the end, that's when I have very crushing, and it goes down. And usually in the last 20,000 words of my manuscripts is when I start having crippling doubt and anxiety, and it's like you're getting to the end and you're like, I don't want to finish it because if I finish it and it sucks, it's horrible, and I'm not going to do it, and so I'm just not going to finish it. It's just going to be there.
Yeah.
That's where my word count plummets, is at the end of the book.
Well, and this is the problem that I've discovered over the last 2 days. Really, is that I have a solid enough plan that I could just plow through to the end, and I could connect all the dots, and it would be okay. But I don't know that it would be enjoyable to read, if that makes sense. Like it would make sense going from point A to point B to point C, but I've realized that I've got more work to do on that plot and the motivation, because if my kind of big twists are going to work at the end, then they need to have some emotional oomph behind them.
Yeah, the dramatic structure has to be there for to have the impact. Yeah,
exactly. So
do you have to sort all that out now?
Well, and that's something I've been working on, Lauren. Is the problem is, as I kind of build some of this backstory, then that affects the now of the book. And I kind of see that my storylines are going to deviate because of it. So I decided to go back and kind of really nail down what was going on then, and then figure out how that's going to ripple into the present. So maybe it all stays the same, and I just use that as to build the tension. But maybe my characters take a left turn. And like Amy and I were talking earlier, this is why I've always been a pantser, because these things just, I don't know. I'm having a difficult time understanding where the story is fully going from the beginning. And I know Josh has said, I pants the outline. I get it, but I'm.
What helps me sometimes is when I'm stuck on issues like that, is literally just creating a blank page and writing down the questions that I'm having about the scene, and writing down potential answers, and just going through and just doing that down. So I'm not just thinking, because sometimes you get in those mental loops, the what is it, the OODA loop that you can't get out of. And if you just write the question down and then write out like 8 options, sometimes those options don't work, but sometimes those options lead to ideas that fix the problem you're trying to solve. And that helps me 9 times out of 10. I'll stop and do something like that, and it usually works out.
Yeah, that's what's happening with my little plot nibbles, is when I come up with an idea, I'll write it down somewhere, because there's a place on Dabble for it. There's a tab for everything. And I'll just store that idea store it somewhere, and then come back around to the character I was working on and trying to figure out what's their backstory or the plot point I was trying to follow. And then sometimes those connections just kind of jump out. But it's been step by baby step by baby step.
Josh, one thing I wanted to ask you is, as you go back and edit the first book in your trilogy, or your series, and then writing the second book now, are you finding that things in the first book are affecting the second book, or is your plan for the second book changing as you edit the first book?
The plan for the book isn't changing. Some of the ideas that I had for character setup and interaction have morphed a little bit. And that happened at the end of the first book. And so some of those changes are just organic from the end of the first book that didn't present themselves in the beginning when I was writing it. For instance, one of my characters, I didn't have the idea to make him religious until the end of the book. And so I had to go back through and like take out curse words and take out different things that he would say because he's religious. But I think one of the biggest things I found in doing the second book is I'm doing like really short tertiary POV changes where it's a character that's a one-off, and he has an experience, and it shows kind of the skill and the mystery of the main character, like coming out of nowhere or seeing something he doesn't understand or something like that. And one of the things I realized in writing one of those scenes yesterday is that I don't know that I've ever actually described what my main character looks like. Because in my mind, the scene has the main character come up behind this tertiary POV doctor, and in my mind I see the doctor turning around, and then I go, well, what does Logan look like? And so then I had to go back through the first book, and I still haven't found a description. I might just have to make one up, but so I'm really glad that again the first book isn't done, and I can kind of whittle it away and take care of it. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing with the second book is so much wasn't done in the first book when I finished it, but I'm able to go back and kind of piece it together, that I'm just going to storm through the second book, because I know when I start writing the third book, I'm going to keep going back and whittling and fixing and putting pieces back together. So like when I go through, I leave names off. I have big things, a capital name, capital city name, capital planet name, like all of those things are just rifled through the manuscript. I'll just go back and fix it all later.
That brings up a great question, because I do that a lot too. I'll write a whole book and not really describe the people very much. And I rarely go into talking about race, ethnicity, that sort of thing. It's not that I'm completely blind to the diversity of the city or the group of people I'm talking about. It just I don't know. It's secondary and a lot of times too. So I've read writers where they're very detailed about every individual's look, the way they dress, very visually stimulating, and then sometimes it's just completely up to the reader's discretion. What do you guys think about describing characters, giving people exactly what kind of transmitting to the reader exactly how they're supposed to interpret a character versus just letting the reader kind of dress people however they want? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I'm editing a series right now. It's a 3-book series written by Blaine Pardoe. It's an alien invasion, and he's got multiple POV characters throughout this series. Like, I've got a list of maybe 4 pages long of all of the character names. And if he has a description, I'll stick it in there just to make sure, track all the descriptions. But what I've noticed is that he does do character descriptions very well. And sometimes it's just an adjective here or there. Yeah. Sometimes it's a whole phrase to give a little bit of a description. Sometimes there isn't a description, and it's the character's voice that kind of colors out who that person is or their actions. One fun thing about having multiple POV characters is that the voice for the narrators changes just a little bit, and they notice different details about the other characters. So in book 3, as the character POV characters are starting to meet each other, they're giving descriptions of the other character that as a reader, I had no idea of. So there's one character, I knew that he was tall and muscular for 2 books, but in book 3, I found out that he was Black, and I had no idea. And it was like a revelation. Yeah. And, from his outlook in life and from the things that he had overcome, like a lot of things made sense. But it took a reporter character, Dana Blaze. She's sort of like I like that shallow name. She's kind of a shallow plastic kind of character.
Sounds like a morning DJ.
She's
Dana
very
Blaze.
Dana Blaze. Yeah, that's why she chose that name. She named herself. I'm giving all kinds of spoilers away. Sorry. But she's a very detailed character and person. So she is looking at the other character. She notices things. She notices small details. And it takes Dana to meet this other character from book one that the reader finally sees who he is and gets a more complete picture. And I came away appreciating Dana and her skills as a person, as a character, more. But that's some of the fun that you can do with that multiple POV stuff is you can see the characters through each other's eyes and you can bring that out. So you don't have to have all of these descriptions right from the start. You don't even have to have your main character described in book one. I never thought as an editor I'd be saying something like that. It's working really well in this series.
Wow. Amy, you have written books that are standalone as well as written books in a shared universe. Do those two different writing exercises, writing for yourself that's completely in your head versus writing a shared universe where multiple people are contributing to this thing, does that matter? Is there a difference in your eyes about how you make and describe characters for the readers, or do you follow the same kind of self rules no matter where you're writing?
I think like I tend to like to give just enough description that the reader can kind of fill in the blanks, and especially like if it's a romance, because people have certain things that they find attractive that other people don't. So
Right.
if you can make it just vague enough to give them an idea, they can fill in the blanks. But
Red hair, that's disgusting.
that's right. But when I was doing the shared universe, we did get more detailed because we had a series Bible that we had to go off of on all the details. And when it came to characters, depending on what type of character it was, depended on, like, we had main characters that were mine, so other people could mention them, but they didn't give them lines. Then there were secondary characters that were, the copyright was more shared. So those secondary characters, the other characters could create lines, and then we would just go back and forth with, does this sound like something your character would say? So we did get detailed because we had to keep it consistent. And that was a challenge, being really consistent with all these characters that had all these different, it was paranormal, so it was all over the map, different creatures and whatnot. But personally, I like to keep it a little vague, because especially like with covers, and it's one of those things where I know people love, especially with romance, they love a person on the cover or a couple on the cover. I don't like that. Because I like to read and form my own picture. And if there's someone on the cover, that's kind of what sticks in my head. And I might be like, no, that's not who I'm envisioning at all. So, I like to be a little more vague personally.
It's kind of like in Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files, on, what are they up to, like 18 books now in the series, I think it is. And almost every cover, I'm trying to think of the newest one. I'll just go with almost every cover. Harry Dresden is wearing a hat.
Yeah.
And in the books, he never wears a hat. That is, Jim Butcher has never described Harry Dresden wearing a hat. And it's become kind of a funny thing now that the cover artist puts a hat on Harry Dresden, and he never, but yeah, that does kind of become an indelible part of the character. Whatever you see on the cover translates to how you see the character, even if you never wrote it, So.
Especially with a series, we've got to keep that consistent on the covers. And I've heard complaints of people like, hey, how come the person in the heroine in this book has blonde hair, but the woman on the cover's got brown hair?
Yeah.
And that drives me nuts too. So that's something that if I do put people on the cover, I try to make sure it's consistent with everything I've written in the book. And there's been a couple times when I've actually changed the way I wrote the character to fit who was on the cover, because I just couldn't find the right image, and I was tired of fighting with it. And I was like, I'll just change it just enough that nobody's going to complain. So,
man, that, Ian, in a series or in a book like you're writing, how much character development is going as far as description? How much character description is going into it? And by the way, Corey Gillum says hello to Lauren and Josh, and not the other three of us.
Oh,
Whatever, Corey.
So for Patrick, I'm doing the bare minimum for describing him. The only real description that I have so far is that he has fair skin. And I think that's the only thing I've done to physically describe him at all. I want the reader to be able to self-insert as they read, because I am writing it for kids that I teach, and I'm keeping that in the back of my mind as I go. And I want them to be able to insert themselves in the story, because the truth is a lot of my kids don't read for fun. And I want to find a way to let at least the male population find a way to find something to read, because those are the ones that struggle with reading the most. There are a few characters that I have done more description for, but they typically aren't main characters, and I can't really tell you why I'm describing them the most. It's just coming out that way. That may change as I continue, but as of right now, I have no plans to have a concrete description for Patrick, because the truth is we don't know what St. Patrick looked like 2,000 years ago. So it would seem almost dishonest on my part to force something on him. So that's another reason why I'm just kind of leaving it open to whatever you want. In my mind.
But you have no problem dropping dragons in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's a willing suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
We can only disbelieve so much.
Exactly. In my mind, Patrick is 17-year-old me. But that's just, what's easy for me to envision as I'm writing it. But, I want it to be where you can imagine whomever you wish. So.
Did 17-year-old Patrick bleach his hair like you did?
That was 15-year-old.
Anyway.
It was a phase.
Hey, I did it too, man. I did it too.
Oh, yeah. I don't regret it. I'd do it again.
I was the spitting image of Slim Shady.
That's all I heard ninth grade year.
Wow.
I need pictures of that, Josh. Just saying.
I got them somewhere. I got them.
I hear you. So we all have gotten to points where the writing is getting a little uncomfortable. How do you see the rest of your writing challenge going? Is there hope? Are you thinking that there are anything in particular that you can do or will do going forward? I know for me, I'm going to be I'm going to be writing more of my backstory, and the main story is not going to be moving forward as fast as I thought it would. But I think I'll still be churning out words. They'll just be different words than I thought would, until I get some things settled. But where do you see your story right now, Lauren?
Well, I want to get the book done. I want it to happen. I want to be proud of it. I want to love it. I want to have fun doing it. And I also want to, keep up all my family obligations and editing obligations, and, keep all of those different plates spinning. So I might not. No, it's very not likely that I'll get 50,000 words done by the end of the month. But I hope that by the end of the month, I'll have made forward progress every day. Yeah. And that I'm proud of that progress that I've done, and that this book will get done in the next couple months.
Yeah. Forward momentum is the important part. Yeah. Josh, how do you see you kind of making up your ground from last week? Do you have a specific strategy, or is it just sit down and grind out?
Well, according to the calendar on my Dabble, we have 22 days left until the end.
Yes.
I'm planning to do between 3,000 and 4,000 a day until then. So I'll have probably between 70 and 75,000 words written by that, which will put me within 20,000 words, 25,000 words of my goal. I think. I know it's probably going to be longer than that. So I'll be super close. I will probably have the majority of the first draft done by then. Going back and filling in different things. One of the things I have done for a while is starting in the middle of chapters and then flushing out the middle of the chapter to the end and then going back in and finishing, like bringing the intro on and seeing if I even need an intro. But I have a pretty good shot to get about 75,000 words done by the time we're done with the competition, and then I'm at the goal line basically. So
Nice. Amy, how do you feel about how does it feel going forward?
I don't know. Like I start writing and I'm boring myself, and I think that's part of the problem is I'm not feeling like it's entertaining, and so I'm like, if I'm boring myself, I'm definitely going to bore the readers. So I'm having to work through that and figure out how to fix it. And again, I think it's just down to there's just honestly just so much clutter in my mind right now that it's really difficult to break through to that spot where I feel like I'm just clear and focused. And so that's really what I'm struggling with. And I get words out and I read them and I'm like, God, it's terrible. And then I try to write a few more and I'm like, oh, that's even worse. And to the point that I just look at it and think, I don't even know why I'm trying this. And, you go to the downhill mental slide.
Yeah.
You really start hating what you're writing. So that's kind of that spot that I'm in right now. But I keep telling myself, okay, just sit down and start writing. I kind of do, like it was mentioned earlier, work out, okay, what are my characters' motivations? What kind of things I'm trying to solve? What are the potential answers? Just trying to work, branch that off in any way that'll be somewhat interesting. My only, I think, hope with this that helps me is knowing that some of my best books have been some of the hardest for me to write. So I'm hoping this will be one of those.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that because we've all had like family stuff come up, and in November, I've always thought it was funny that National Novel Writing Month is November when you have Thanksgiving, and all this stuff comes up in November. It seems like.
Time.
But like you said, Amy, some of the best stuff I've ever written has come out of times where it was the most stressful in my life. Horrible family stuff going on, and that's when the best words ever have come out. So just because life is easy doesn't mean your creativity is the best it'll be, because it's just not. It's just not how humans work. But yeah, I was going somewhere with that and I completely lost my train of thought.
Well, what was it? I can't remember who said it. I know a famous author said it, and you'll probably tell me, and then I'll feel stupid. When he goes back and rereads his stuff, he doesn't know what he wrote on a bad day and what he wrote on a good day. It's all there. And like I'm the same way. There are days where I punch out a couple thousand words and I'm like, this is the worst pile of dog crap I have ever put on paper. But I don't go back and fix it. I just leave it, and then I move on and keep going. And then when I piece everything together, first of all, I've forgotten what I thought was dog crap to begin with, and then I go, this is pretty good. This is good. I like it.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. As you're telling your stories, you're in the middle of it. You're in the war of art right now. You're in the thick of it. Just keep pressing forward, and in a month or two, whenever it's done, later on when you come to look back at it, you might be like, hey, this is pretty good. This is actually pretty good. Or at least you have something to work with and something to build on and add to. Get material.
I know what I was going to say a minute ago now, and it came back to me.
You're
I
welcome.
have done something this time that I've never done before, and as I've gotten an idea for a scene that does not connect to the scene that I'm working on at the moment, I go ahead and flip over to a new scene in Dabble, and I write out as much of that scene as I can see in my head, even if it's not the chronological time to write that scene yet, but I
Right.
know it's going to be. And I go
Mhm.
ahead and get that out and flesh out what I can, knowing that I will eventually get to it. So I guess what I was going to say, Amy, is that have you had any moments like that where what you're writing right now kind of sucks and it just doesn't feel right, but is there an idea of something that you do want to write, even if it's not chronologically time to write that scene? And I've had a couple writers tell me that they do that, and I've always thought that was just crazy and bizarre. But I kind of understand it now, I think.
Yeah, actually, I've done that. I've written some books out of order
Yeah.
because I just, like I said, I just there's some scenes that I was anxious to actually write because I was like, oh, I can't wait to get to this part, and then the mind starts just running with it, and I'm like, I might as well just be writing this down, and I can adjust it later and connect all the dots, when I put it in place. And so that's something I will probably end up doing like later tonight when I sit down to write. I will probably just say, okay, screw this part. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. I'm gonna pick a few scenes that I really feel excited about and work through those and see if it just can't get something moving. So
Mhm.
yeah, I've done that before, and it does seem to help, especially if I feel stuck.
Excellent.
Well, yeah, that
Um,
happened. It's good. You get stuck on a scene where you're like, I don't like this, or I think that it's not going the right way, and then you jump 8 chapters ahead and you start going really good, and then you're like, oh, I know how to fix this other chapter, and you can go back and kind of jump around. I do the exact same thing. I actually love writing out of order. I go like pick my favorite scenes, and I'm like, I'm gonna write all these favorite scenes and leave all the rest of the stuff later.
Time jump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Diana Gabaldon told me several years ago when I interviewed her for Author Stories, she told me that some days she wakes up and she just writes a scene, and then at the end of it she just has a pile of scenes, and then she figures out how they all stitch together. And I
Ooh.
thought that is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. How do you
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
just send me to the loony bin, I think.
Yeah,
But
I've done that. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm kind of starting to understand it a little bit. I mean, if you know where you're going and you know what scenes need to be written, and have the confidence to write the scene you feel like, I don't know, maybe
Well, it's the subconscious working, right? Because
Yep.
your conscious mind is focusing on the scene that you're feeling good about, but you're still kind of processing all of that other stuff. And it's like, oh, that name that's on the tip of my tongue, I won't think about it and it'll come to me. And like 2 hours here, to like, aha, that's what it was. And that it's a real thing. It happens a lot.
And let me tell you something the crazy that happens to me is I will
Okay.
be writing and that subconscious thing is happening and I don't realize it. And I'll write maybe something a little bit later. And then by the end, it's all tied together. And I didn't even realize that's what I was weaving. I'm weaving
Whoa.
this extra plot. But when I get to the end, I just kind of like, I go, holy crap, that all works perfectly. Where, there was one scene even in one of my books where I found somebody ended up being related to somebody else at the very end. It was like a big reveal. And I had been weaving that storyline into it through the whole thing, not realizing that's what I was doing until the end.
That's
and I
awesome.
actually just typed out the words like "sorry, Pop," and it was just like my brain
Wow.
goes boom.
Ah!
Oh my god, that's how. So sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. I tell people I have no clue what I'm doing when I sit down,
It's all
but
an accident.
it seems to work out. So
Yeah.
it keeps happening.
So
And
trust the
sometimes,
process. You'll get there.
Yeah.
and sometimes if you're writing romance, a reveal like that could change the genre of your book.
Oh,
Oh no.
yeah.
I had the exact same thing. I can't remember if I've mentioned it on the show before because I go do so many different things and I can't remember if I've talked
Yeah.
about it here or wherever else, but I had a throwaway character in a beginning chapter of book 1 that I just thought it was a throwaway chapter. And then as I'm trying to fix the ending of the first book, and trying to get the characters from A to B without doing what I call easy button. I hate easy button. So I spent 3, 4, 5 days trying to figure out how to get them to B. And I was like, this character knows where they're going. He knows where the place that they need to be at because he works for the dude. He double crossed the guy threw him in jail or whatever. He ran into these guys. So he knows where they're going.
Plot twist.
I did it on accident. I just had to change a couple of names and then put them in at the end and have them come back. And you're like, the reader's like, oh, let's throw away character. And somebody's going to be like, oh, that's super awesome. How'd he figure that out? It's such a smart guy. I'm like, no, I'm an idiot, man. That just happened on accident.
Same. Yeah.
The subconscious mind is powerful and when any creative endeavor, but your mind has already figured out all of the problems that you're struggling with. It's just a matter of asking it what what the solution is. Sometimes.
Can you help me out here, please?
Yeah,
please
do something.
Yeah, get out of your own way. So
yeah.
So Ian, you've got holiday coming up, which means a couple of days off of work. Does that play into your plan for later this month? Or what are the holidays looking like for your? Because
did an angel just get his wings?
I think it did. An English teacher got his
got a break or
right.
Well deserved.
That was a kid actually doing their homework.
Right.
Imagine that.
So that break is going to save my butt during this thing. I can tell you right now. I am not at the word count I would like to be. I would have liked to have been at 10K right now. I'm $3,000 behind that. Part of that is because I did take the weekend off because I was just exhausted from this week. And like today's word count is only at, I don't know, 790 words.
Yeah.
I was hoping for 1,500 today, but that's just the way it is right now. I'm going to take the week of Thanksgiving break and I'm going to get as much done as I possibly can because, one, I need the creative juices to flow a little bit better. I know where I want to go with this. I know what I want to do. It's just like everyone else has been saying, I need this to tell me what's happening. Today, I was plucking away at the keyboard after the kids had gone home, and I was like, okay, I know I need to write this scene here. It's so difficult to do that. Yeah, and it's the problem everyone else has been having. Like these are not the words that I feel like are appropriate here, or maybe I don't sound as smart as I should when I'm writing that, but I'm just trying to get the words down, and I will fix them later. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and that's the point of a first draft is to get the words out so that you can edit them later, and that is a great topic there. How do you guys turn off the self-editor? Because I'm every writer I've ever talked to has the same struggle. You want the words to be good, and you can see the words on the page as you type them, and they're not good. But how do you trust that they have the potential to be good words?
I fight that a lot. I fight it really hard because I like to have, I don't have clean drafts, but I like to not have to look at the words and go, what was I trying to say here?
Yeah.
But I do some shortcuts that help me immensely while I'm doing the first draft, which is something I've already mentioned, which is just putting name in all caps. Or I'll put like a bracket and say, figure this out. Like, and I need a tech word here. Or if I'm just going along and I'm like, that sentence didn't work well, I'll just double enter and type it over again, and just keep going. I don't delete. I don't go back and just like change words. I just vomit words on the page and then go back and clean it up. Like maybe after I'm done, I do a lot of sprints. I do a lot of 20-minute sprints. And on average, I get about 400 or 500, 600 words every 20 minutes. And usually I'm part of a writers group. We have a Discord and we run the sprints on Discord. And usually we'll give ourselves like 3, 4, 5 minutes between sprints. And during those 5 minutes is when I sit and look at everything that I've written and then kind of clean it up and delete what I don't need, and then start over again. But it took me a long time to get over the backspace, make sure the word is correct, like write the sentence. Is that the way I want the sentence? I don't care. Keep going. And it's still a struggle. I mean, there was a lot of times I'll turn the wavy lines off on Word, so you can't see that your word is not spelled correctly.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot too.
Well, and in Scrivener, in Dabble,
Zealot.
In Dabble, there's a toggle. If you click the little eyeball icon, you can turn spell checking on or off, and style and grammar checking on and off. And I turn those off when I'm, like you said, when you're sprinting, just because if I see those squigglies, I'm gonna have to go back and fix it, because I'm the guy that cannot have unread mail in my inbox. I can't have notifications. It's just one of my little weird quirks. And so
you would hate my Gmail account.
What?
My Gmail account has 64,924 open emails or unopened.
No,
it's a big number right there. It's a big number.
No. That
not that bad.
That hurts my brain.
Now that's spread across like 5 accounts, but still.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere around 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine has 0.
Oh,
that's 0. So,
I bow to your superior intellect.
No, it's a mental illness. It's not superiority. It's a hang up from being a Gen X kid, I think. But that's a callback to a previous conversation. Anyway, yeah. So, Josh, are you the strike through guy? Do you do strike through?
I was.
Okay.
I have. And that's so I write on a Mac, and on a Mac I have an app called Word Counter that I can specifically tell it to track keystrokes, because I track gross words, not net. And so before I had that, like, was writing on my PC, I would do
a lot of gross words that I wrote today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, they're all gross.
Yeah.
So instead of so I would track my words, and you write down, whatever your Word document is at 10,000 words or whatever. But in order to get an accurate word count, I would just strike through. If I have like a paragraph I'm deleting, I would strike through it and then keep going. So my word count was accurate. And then when I was done for the day or done with the project, then I'd go back and delete all the strike throughs. And
the reason I ask that is because when you go back, to edit, and you see the text that you strike through,
stricken,
that you have stricken.
Yes, I have stroke.
Does that trigger something like if you change it, then that original thought might be lost forever. But if you strike through it and then come back to it, maybe you could say, okay, I see what I was thinking there, but maybe there's a better way to do it. Have you ever had that experience where leaving that hint for yourself kind of triggered something different that kind of informed where you wanted to go?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen a lot of times. If I'm going back through, like on one of my final edits, I'll find passages that I've stricken. I have stricken it in
passages you have struck.
Yes. And I'll
simmer down, English teacher.
Yeah. Mute her. I'll see those, and you can see the difference in what I wrote and what I originally wrote. And sometimes you can take that and play around with it. Sometimes you can use it somewhere else in the chapter. Sometimes it just gets deleted. But a lot of times, if I've gone through and I've written 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs and then I don't need it, I'll either strike it through and leave it and then see if I need it later on in the edit, or put it in like a discarded scene folder and just toss it over there. A lot of times I'll leave it because sometimes if I put it in the discarded scene folder, I forget about it or I don't ever go look again. It's like that drunk drawer where you put all your wires at because of you're going to need the wire eventually, but then you never go to the drunk drawer. It just stays there. But if I strike it out in the manuscript, I have to see it when the edit happens. And so that sometimes I can pull it out and use it again somewhere else.
This is like the olden days when they are writing with a feathered pen or something.
That's right.
They must have had
it and then
get off my lawn.
But it's still there for later just in case.
True.
Well, do any of you plan to write on Thanksgiving Day?
I can't imagine I would have the time.
Usually I can. Usually I do because I usually write in the early mornings when I'm drinking coffee. And I don't think we're having family on Thanksgiving. I think we're doing it like on a different day because we have like 800 different families that are coming in from different places. Whatever, it doesn't work out. But I think I am going to work on all of the days. Typically, nobody really does anything until like 10, 11 o'clock. So if I get up at 6 or 5 or whatever it is, I can bang out a couple thousand words for the day and be good.
Well, at our house, Thanksgiving is like the high holy day of the year. That's my favorite holiday for sure.
Yeah,
and I try to influence everyone else to believe the way I do. But
the question is, will you be writing on Thanksgiving?
Well, I was getting to that. I'm going to be cooking 2 turkeys and all the things that we always do. But in my mind, I'll be at my desk about 6 o'clock that morning and at least write a scene. At least write a scene. So 750 to 1,000 words, maybe. In my mind, that's how it's going.
Well, you got like 5 hours for the turkey to cook. You're not just going to stand there and watch the turkey to cook. You could do, 5 hours of writing in that time.
Yeah, but I have to oversee all the other, cooking.
It'll work out.
But anyway, that's kind of the reason why I've written ahead, is to take into account that day. And my birthday is next week, and I'm going to take the day off from work. So I don't know. I'd like to think that I'm going to. I'll just put it that way. Now, whether that actually happens or not, we'll see. But I would like to think that I will.
I'll make you a deal. Whoever writes more words on Thanksgiving gets the wishbone.
Ooh, like the actual day of Thanksgiving, or when we're having Thanksgiving?
Little friendly
actual day.
I'll do it. I'm down. Put me down, coach.
Oh. All right. Wishbone challenge it is. What about you, Amy? What's your plan for Thanksgiving Day?
Well, I know I will be up at the butt crack of dawn and, getting stuff fed because my kids all come to me now. So I really have no clue. I would like to think that I will, but odds are I'm going to eat way too much, take a nap. And
those odds are certain.
Hope the dishes do themselves, but they won't. Right. And then who knows what the rest of the day. If my kids have their way, we'll be decorating for Christmas that evening. So I don't know what kind of time I'll have. I'll just have to see how it goes.
You just need to get yourself one of those magic sinks. I've got one. You take all your dirty dishes and you just pile them in the sink. And then they just find their way.
That's called a wife.
Yeah.
No,
you got a wife.
Yeah.
And today is your anniversary to marry to that awesome, amazing wife.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I'm the magic that happens. exactly how that
I'm the magic that happens.
Indeed.
I need that quote, Amy Hale. I'm the magic that happens.
Put that
Have you
on
guys ever
That's
T-shirt.
good.
have you ever seen that video where it's this boyfriend and girlfriend are living together and he starts talking about the magic coffee table?
Yes,
And-
Yes.
it's something
Oh
down.
my gosh, I yes.
She's like, you idiot.
Yeah.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a great clip.
Lauren, are you having a big family gathering for Thanksgiving Day?
We are, and we're going to stuff as many people in here as we can. We've got some neighbors coming. I just had my aunt called, and she's like, "Hey, can I bring that couple?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I haven't seen them in years. Got to catch up with them. Bring them all in." Yeah, so we're gonna have full house here.
Will they
And
be
so,
gathering around your computer? That's the
ooh,
question.
that would be very strange. Yeah, so I do plan on writing that morning, and I think the the bigger sticky point was, do I know what I'm going to write?
Mhm.
That'll still be a question. I have got a feeling in 2 weeks.
Hey, the more eggnog you drink that day, maybe the writing gets
True.
easier.
Is that the solution, Ernest?
It's a solution.
It's a
I'm not saying it's
solution.
the
All right.
solution,
Okay.
but we'll see. Well,
Or
guys,
pumpkin pie and whipped cream. Like you just set the pumpkin pie, cover it with whipped cream, and just sit in front of your computer and cry while you're eating pumpkin pie, and then then maybe some words will happen.
Maybe blend in some whiskey.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Corey
Okay.
Gillum says Trish has now found liquid pumpkin pie. So that's a thing.
Nice.
we are below the Mason-Dixon line, so pumpkin pie becomes sweet potato pie down here. Just for
okay.
reference.
I apologize, but is it pecan or pecan pie?
Pecan.
Pecan.
Uh-huh.
Pecan.
Pecan.
Where you step outside to handle business. That's
Uh,
the nicest way I could say.
I'm not consuming that.
That's what people in Georgia say. And
Oh yes,
we're-
and we don't
we're
talk
not in
about them.
Georgia. We're not in Georgia. Anyway,
My dad loved pecan pie, and me and my brother were all pumpkin pie freaks. Well, he made us eat the pecan pie one year, and after that, it was all pecan pie. And then he would get mad because mom wouldn't make enough pecan pie. She would make more pumpkin pie, and they're not eating the pumpkin pie. They're eating my pecan pie. We need to make more.
Well, whose fault is that, Pops?
Yeah, your
yeah,
fault.
pecan pie is the superior pie, period.
Indeed.
No discussion. No discussion. It just is. Anyway, this conversation has devolved into gluttony, apparently. So,
Yum.
anyway, thanks guys for next to my wife and granddaughter, y'all are my favorite 4 people on
Oh,
the planet, and happy to get to do this every Wednesday night. Sally forth and get those words.
Indeed.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
have
See
a
ya.
good night.
Night.